everyone. Welcome back, or welcome if you're new. My name is Erin, and I am fascinated by all things cults, true crime, and unique spiritual practices. I used to go live a little bit more often, but I missed you guys. It's been a little over 2 weeks since I've uploaded anything, and I thought, what a great way to recap the failures of cults from 2025, then going live with all of you. So I am really excited today. I'm going to give it a couple of minutes for everybody to kind of filter in and just provide a little bit of an update to why I had to take some time off and what we have in store for you this year at Let the Fresh Erin. I'm just going to quickly look at the live stream on my phone to make sure it's actually happening and I'm not just talking to nobody. Do 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 do. Okay, you guys, we're live. Awesome. If you are joining me right now, thank you so much for making the live. The live will be up for a little while so you can get all caught up on all of the crazy things that have happened this year in the culty world. Most of these I've covered and done deep dives on, and I'll try to remember after I finish the live to go back and link all of the deep dives to these cults and these, or regarding these cults, in my description of the video. But there is one cult I haven't done a deep dive on yet. So I'm like, okay, let's just put it on the schedule for 2026. So I don't know how y'all have been feeling about 2025. I hope you're all having a nice December. I mentioned in a post recently that I just kind of needed a break. I was going through some personal things. And if I'm going to be 100% honest with you guys, I usually like to try to keep things a little more upbeat. But the more I've reflected on 2025, the more I realize that the last 6 months have been very, very, very difficult for me. And I think I was just kind of trying to keep going so that I didn't succumb to all the feelings I was having and all the stress I was under. But man, I'm telling you, August until November was rough. I don't usually see myself, so I have 2 monitors right now. I have one above the camera and one on my laptop for the live, and I'm like, your girl's moisturized. She looks a little oily, but overall, moisture. Now, I am having a little bit of a difficult time accessing the chat. Let me see if oh, hey, okay, I found the chat, y'all, yay. I cannot pronounce your name. Oh, Boyle Akimista. And I'm so sorry I can't pronounce your name right, but thank you for being here. But yeah, I was running this very big project. Everything went well, seemingly. My boss at my full-time job was like, now we're going to have you run a department next year. And I was like, cool, what's the compensation going to look like? And they were like, well, you're not going to get a raise, and also you're fired now because you asked for a raise. I was like, okay, a little bit of whiplash there. What am I going to do now? So I've been in a little bit of this limbo for the last couple of months, and then right before the holidays, I got just really, really sick. It felt like I usually try to let my body kind of heal itself as I'm sick and just try to rest as much as possible. But I ended up needing to be on a cocktail of Sudafed and Zicam and zinc and Dayquil and then NyQuil, just because I had to get through the holidays. So that's why I've had to take a pause. And I was going to wait to drop a video on Saturday. But I was like, man, that's been 3 weeks. I just need to get back out there, say hi to my friends online. I am really excited to share, now that we have some more people watching, that I am relaunching the membership for the channel. If you click on my memberships, you'll find 3 tiers. The 3rd tier, what's really special about it is it features a Discord server where I'm going to hopefully be starting to ask you guys more about what you think, get more of your personal feedback, and come to you for suggestions on what you'd like to see covered. Sometimes I have a really hard time making a firm decision because so much will be happening all at once. I mean, for example, like we've been watching the Diddy documentary, which is a total, like, my mind is blown. And then the Jodi Hildebrandt documentary just got released yesterday. And then I think I have like 3 deep dives fully scripted at this point. I've sourced a lot of stories from people I want to share with you. So sometimes it's just hard for me to be like, I want to cover this topic right now and then just go for it. Oftentimes I waste time being like, well, what's the best one to do right now? What will people be most interested in? So if you access the Discord, you're the people I'm going to be coming to first and just be like, hey, help a girl out. A, if you have suggestions. B, make these decisions for me. And C, if you have any resources I haven't been able to tap into, I would love to get that feedback. Another really fun change going into the new year is I'm going to do a weekly live. I really enjoyed reacting to the crazy stuff that cult leaders say over the last few weeks, and I really, really want to do that with you guys still, but live, because it's always more fun to have a little bit of that rapport. And so I'm really, really looking forward to that this year. So enough of my jargon and updates on changes. Let's talk about what's been going on in the cultiverse in 2025. Some of these you're going to be familiar with, but this first one is going to be a bit of a new update for you. And that is the Unification Church. Now, for each cult, I'm going to give you just a very, very brief overview over the limited amount of research that I did, and then we'll jump into the update. So, this cult... Oh, I just lost my place. So I'm fast forwarding. Oh, hi, Kristen. Thank you so much for being here. This is awesome. Yeah, this feels good. This feels good to go live with you guys. So we're talking about the Unification Church, and it was founded by Sun Myung Moon in 1954 in post-war Korea. And he did this very specifically in a nation that was shattered by conflict and questioning all of its spiritual foundations. And Moon claimed to have been chosen by Jesus to complete a divine mission and positioned himself and his wife as the true parents of mankind. So over the next several decades, since the 50s, the church would become synonymous with mass weddings, big, huge global business networks, and even a global membership that saw itself as part of this massive mission. So critics would start accusing the church of being very aggressive in how they proselytized. They would use these thought reform techniques and exploitative fundraising. But all of the adherents believed that they were participating in the spiritual restoration of the entire world. And across Japan, thousands of people joined and often donated large percentages of their income to the movement, and some families even sold property while others went into debt. And many people believed that they were securing spiritual protection for their ancestors. Oh, hi, Goggy. Nice to see you. Yep, I'm seeing a lot of issues with pseudo-cults, too. My friend from Brazil, whose name I can't pronounce, I'm sorry. So this cult also had something called spiritual sales, which was a fundraising practice in which followers were pressured to buy expensive religious objects or make large donations to secure blessings or to avoid misfortune. But in 2022, the assassination of former Prime Minister Shinzo Abe revealed that his mother's bankruptcy was actually tied to the Unification Church donations, and that the nation turned all of its attention to this group because public outrage surged. Because it was a relatable story. Survivors would start coming forward in unprecedented numbers, sharing similar stories. Yes, I donated to, probably under duress, to this church/cult, and now I'm in debt. But there's always this tie of money connecting you to a higher place in heaven, basically buying your place in this like ethereal realm the more that you tithe to your church or donate to your church. So the government then launched a formal investigation into whether the church's practices violated the Religious Corporations Act. Now, in this year, March 2025, the Tokyo District Court issued a ruling that has been unprecedented in modern Japanese history. It forced the dissolution of the Unification Church's Japanese branch. So this was honestly more of a symbolic blow than anything else, because the group does continue to exist informally, but it marked a formal governmental acknowledgement that the organization had caused measurable systemic harm. Of course, the church immediately appealed, claiming that the ruling threatened religious liberty, but for many families, the decision was a validation. It's an acknowledgement that the decades of ruined finances, fractured relationships, and emotional manipulation hadn't been isolated stories, but part of a much larger pattern. So that is the first cult that's been effectively taken down. You can look forward to a deep dive into the Unification Church later this year. I'm going to quickly check in with my friends. Oh, you want... Okay, so this is actually interesting. Someone asked to do a Diddy deep dive and a Scientology deep dive. I've actually done multiple Scientology videos, but I feel like new information is constantly coming out. Next week, I'm actually going to be reacting to some of Jenna Miscavige's content that she posts online as part of my Cult Stories series. So stay tuned in for that. I'm going to OG Gaslit, funny name, especially if you're a fan of this channel. It's kind of ironic. Lou Taylor, Chris K, and Diddy. I did a deep dive on Diddy, and learning all of that blew my mind. But the shocking revelations to come out of the recent documentary are disturbing. Like, I've only watched half of it. I think it's a 4-part series. I watched 2 of the episodes, and then me and my husband were just like talking about it for like an hour afterwards, because it was just like the amount. I think this is what happens too in my brain with the Epstein case, which I really want to talk about that, but I'm hesitant to, just because I get so much feedback on like, don't get political, and the Epstein case has become so politicized, but I don't think it's political. I think it's really important to have people talk about and become more aware about the dangers of these people in power. And the thing that I keep thinking about when it comes to people like Diddy and Epstein is all of the people who were adjacent to the insidious activity. They may not have participated, but they knew about it, and they said nothing about it, which in my opinion makes you almost just as bad as the perpetrators themselves. So I really want to kind of like look into the psychology of like being in an environment that might make you uncomfortable. You leave it and you're like, I'm just not going to say anything to anyone ever about this. I couldn't do it. I would have to speak out. I would have to say something. I don't know if you guys want to share, like, if you've been in that kind of a situation, but like when I know information that I know is going to hurt somebody or has harmed somebody, or I want other people to look out for that, I tell them. I've told multiple friends about finding out their, boyfriend, girlfriend have cheated on them. It's a really hard conversation to have, a hard thing to do, but I'm just a firm believer in like, if you see an injustice being done, you need to call attention to it. So it's utterly, utterly heartbreaking. But let me know if you would want me to dive into the Diddy case again. I'll try to remember to link that video in the description once this live is over. Also, if you want me to look into, like, go live and talk about Epstein, it makes me just so mad that A, we're not listening to women, and no one wants to like believe what survivors are saying without the Epstein files, and then the government's like, sure, we're going to release the files, and then again they redact everything. I'm like, that makes you look more suspicious. It makes you look like you have something to hide. So it tells me that everything we think is in those files is way, 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 way worse. Otherwise, they wouldn't be trying so desperately to hide it. And it doesn't really matter which political spectrum you fall into, because no matter who is in those files, who has victimized young women, is someone I would continue to support no matter what. No matter what. Because it's a world view. It is behavior that is so contradictory to the way I live my life. So that's what I don't understand when people are in denial and are like, yeah, we know Trump was there. We see him on the pictures with all these young girls, but we're just gonna pretend that we don't know. We're just gonna put on blinders to it. Meanwhile, he has 34 felons and is a known R-worder. So I did a deep dive on him too. I might like just repurpose some of these deep dives because I feel like until these people are taken down, they will like people forget. There's so much content coming at us and people just forget. Um Ooh, from Tokyo. Happy New Year's to you too, Red Duke 777. Okay, yep. We're going to review Twin Flames. Yeah, Diddy is definitely nasty. Yeah, Gagi L29, I think that all the time. I'm like, so there were people that witnessed wrongdoing and just decided to say nothing for decades. Why? Because they were afraid of men with power and money. Like, I hate that we're at the place where money has so much control over people. Okay, cool. I will definitely do an Epstein video. It'll take me a long time because, I mean, I think there's like 30,000 pages of those files. So it'll take me a long time to scour through it, but maybe I'll do like a series, like, the first 15,000 for the second. All right, so there was a ton of revelations that came out about NXIVM this year. We had Nancy Salzman and Allison Mack both telling their stories to podcasts, and I listened to both of those and made videos on both of those. I will link those down below. What I did not know until trying to do this year-end review is that Keith Raniere actually tried to appeal his charges this year. I had no idea that happened because I think it was either this year or last year where some of his most devout followers like finally decided that they were going to just, denounce him finally because he's been in jail for so long. And I'm always like, should I do a NXIVM deep dive? But I'm like, man, I feel like everyone knows everything about NXIVM, but I would be happy to like do more of a deep dive on it if you're interested. But yeah, Keith Raniere actually tried to appeal his conviction this year, and luckily nobody like took him seriously. But what's fascinating about this is the same lawyer who represented Raniere also represented Diddy in his trial this year. So that is a crazy, crazy connection that I did not expect at all. All right, so we have some questions in the chat. Oh my gosh, hi from Finland. I'm Finnish. I've never been to Finland, but like Finnish culture is deeply embedded in my family, so I'm really excited to one day go to Finland. So Ruru5265, welcome. Hello. All right, so I feel like a lot of you are here for the Twin Flames edit. There is an active investigation into Twin Flames universe. Since it's an active investigation, there's a lot that we cannot talk about. Now, I have done so many deep dives on Twin Flames universe. I've done interviews with survivors. Jessie of Jessie's Stories is incredible. I've done multiple collaborations with her. Please go check out her, I think it is Jessie's Stories on YouTube. But I want to just remind everybody that the Twin Flames concept predates the Twin Flames universe. And I've talked about this before. And it actually still circulates widely in New Age communities. But the Divines, Jeff and Shalia Divine of Twin Flames universe, built something unprecedented in scale and in structure with offering courses, coaching packages, community forums. Participants were taught not to simply find love, but almost to, on their own, without a real counselor, dismantle all internal barriers that prevented them from recognizing their divinely preordained counterpart, and to pursue that counterpart no matter what, not even if they were married. So when somebody resisted a follower's pursuit, the Divines would often reframe the rejection and call it a mirror. And they created this tool called the mirror exercise to create that emotional block and allow it to be cleared. So once this follower would change emotionally, spiritually, and even potentially their gender identity, that twin flame would come. They would attract their twin flame. Survivors have reported being encouraged to pursue individuals who had clearly demanded distance. Others describe being pressured to reinterpret their own sexual or gender identities to try to fit the leadership's narratives. And financial dependence deepened as members were encouraged to purchase more courses, to purchase not just Twin Flames Universe courses, but food courses and mind alignment practices, or MAP, which is basically being directly linked to Twin Flames Universe at this point and within the raid that was conducted. So Michigan's Attorney General decided that they were going to sign several search warrants that were executed midway, I think July of this year. And it's an ongoing active probe into potential labor exploitation, coercive control, which is so important, and fraudulent practices. Now, I've talked about this several times. Oftentimes what we see when it comes to cults, since there's no real law against coercive control or lying to somebody, I always thought they were going to go in the IRS fraud way by creating this like fake church and funneling their nonprofit money into their for-profit businesses, especially in according to certain sources that speculate that perhaps certain taxes have not been paid, or conversely, since they have their Church of Union that functions as a nonprofit, that they won't be liable or have to pay any taxes. But it turns out that money's being used for profit. So that would be one of those fraudulent practices. But also the labor exploitation part, because they have people that aren't being paid for their time. They're operating essentially as a pyramid scheme where people are paying more money to become coaches and then barely getting any income when they actually are like gaining coaching clients. So I'm very happy that specifically they are also, on top of labor exploitation, fraudulent practices, issues with their nonprofit, they're also being investigated for using coercive control. And the more cases that we have where those two words are used will continue to set the precedent. We have it in NXIVM. We have it when we did the Nature Boy case 2 years ago. Can't believe that's been 2 years ago at this point. But the more in the court where there is a fundamental and legal paper trail of crime being committed while under undue influence or coercive control, it will only help victims and survivors, whether it's a cult or another type of abuser, when they go through the proper channels and the government to try to get justice for themselves. So I'm really glad to see that the investigation is explicitly listing coercive control. So unfortunately, no charges have been filed, but the investigations are suggesting that accountability might be forthcoming. So I am very, very excited about that. But Twin Flames Universe is not the only cult that experienced a raid this year. The Shekinah Church, also known as the M7 TikTok dance group, also experienced a raid this year. So 7M Films, through the Shekinah Church, was launched several years ago and began recruiting dancers with viral potential. And the group entered this era that was full of tight control over the performers' images and what type of content they were allowed to do, their brand deals. There's speculation that essentially the leader of Shekinah, Robert, has essentially stolen most of the profits from all of the people that 7M, the management company, represented. Now, I've done a couple deep dives on this cult as well, but you can also watch the 2024 Netflix series Dancing for the Devil, the 7M TikTok cult, and get a big overview as well. But In summer of this year, the federal agents executed search warrants in Los Angeles in 2025. The investigation includes possible S trafficking, financial crimes, and again, coercion. The legal process is going to be slow, but the cultural impact is immediate. It is forcing a reevaluation of how spiritual authority and entertainment are intersecting in this influencer era. Now, you guys let me know if this is something that you would be interested in seeing. Something I've been thinking about, honestly, for years is how almost like I talk about the importance of critical thinking all of the time. And we're in this place right now, especially with how not just connected to social media we are, but like truly inundated and addicted to social media that a lot of us are. LOL, as I talk to you guys on a social media platform. But I think something I think about all the time is our algorithms are on an individual basis keeping us locked into one thought loop. I mean, it's creepy enough when you like Google a product you want to use, or I'm really big into fitness, so whenever I look up like right now one of my goals for 2026 is to continue to weight lift, but also start working on calisthenics. So I've been researching calisthenics and like different videos to help follow along on how I can get better at it. And then I'll get all these ads and people who, are like calisthenic coaches. And it's crazy how like everything in social media is connected, but also it's just a confirmation bias loop where if you are looking for evidence that supports your own point of view, your own thought process, your own opinion, you're going to keep finding it. And people are so afraid to venture into a different point of view that might trigger critical thinking because they don't want to be inundated with more and more and more of that. They don't want to get on the, quote, wrong side of TikTok. So, or Instagram or whatever social media platform you're on. And that's honestly super, super dangerous because it's only showing us more of what we already like instead of showing us conflicting information that might actually be better based in science or truth. And it's become very, very dangerous. I've done several incel videos, several MAGA videos, several like manosphere, alpha male videos. And it's so fast. There's no question in my mind as to why there is this growth of a singular belief system that to everybody else feels super toxic and scary. And we're like, how do you get to this point where you believe this? And all they're watching are people who are trying to rage bait them for attention. I don't think people fully understand that your attention is currency. So when you comment on anything, even if you hate the content, you're pumping out the message that you hate more. So if I see something that's like pro-Nazi online, I'm scrolling past it because if I comment on it and provide any type of, information or truth and fact in that comment section, and then people start responding to my comment, it's only going to pump out the message I don't want people to believe more because they're not going to scroll down and look at my comment. You know what I mean? So it's like it creates this feedback loop where we're never seeking out new information. We're just constantly being told that our opinion is fact because we're seeing it all the time. And it's honestly really scary, especially if for the people, I should say, who fall into like more of an extremist point of view. Sometimes when I'm researching a project or a video, I'll find myself being like, oh my God, my algorithm is now going to be like a ton of incel crap. And I don't want to see that on a daily basis. So I'm like, okay, got to use my incognito browser. But I would like to do a deep dive into like the social media algorithms and how they are creating these like cults in and of themselves. Because people are like, you can't have an online cult. Yes, you can. We're all in an online cult at this point. Anyways, let me check in with you guys. Rants. I'm good at ranting, that's for dang sure. Okay. Let me see. Okay, so one of the things that got me really into cults, or I guess kind of at the same time as cults, was doing watching a ton of anti-MLM content. I've tried to integrate some anti-MLM content into some of my pieces, but it seems like MLMs are just this like never ending cycle, because when one dies off, another one emerges and the cycle just keeps to continue. And it just like I got really sad actually, because I've shared that I'm an actor and I have friends who are actors and models, and I have a friend who is representing Mary Kay, which is one of the like longest lasting, most predatory MLMs ever on the planet. And I was like, I found myself being like so disappointed in her, because I'm like, how can you shill and represent this company that preys upon women? How can you be the face of this company that is going to use your image to get women into debt? I say women because that's predominantly the target audience for makeup MLMs like Mary Kay. I mean, I was preyed upon in college and I paid into it because I thought it was going to get me quick money, and it never did. I never made a cent off of Mary Kay. And the makeup is not good in my opinion. And it just like breaks my heart that people are still blind to it, or they'll accept money in order to like be the face and represent a company that is so ethically and morally repugnant, in my opinion. It's so disappointing. So it just shows me like people are not educated as to how insidious these groups are. Let me check in with you guys real quick. I'll definitely do... Oh gosh, here we go. So I'm going to say this, Angela. Well, maybe I'll just show you. This book is written by one of the top cult experts in the entire world. I think that when one of the top cult experts in the entire world says something is a cult, we need to listen. Now, I'm not going to let this live get into a spiral, and if you want to say anything rude, I will just block you from the channel. I have no qualms about that. But I'm always open to feedback. Now, I do want to share that there is a difference between being MAGA and a Republican, and usually voting Republican. But if you're unwilling to ask yourself the question, why am I so defensive of a man who is a known PDF file felon, R-worder, and who sows hate every chance he gets, maybe I need to ask myself more questions as to why I think all of that is acceptable and why it's impossible for me to accept the truth of that, because it's all public record. So, Angela, I think that you need to ask yourself some really serious questions. And anyone who continues to support Trump or aligns with MAGA has to ask themselves some really, really, really difficult questions. And it's really unfortunate. But maybe this video will provide some answers for you, because we are going to be talking about MAGA very, very soon. All right. Now, sorry, I'm going to just check in because I saw that one comment and got sidetracked. Okay, I haven't heard about this. Carrion Crawler says, could you do something on this extreme look-smaxing scene, which creeps like clavicular, lots of cultist patterns and intersections with extremely online behavior and cult activities? Yes, I will. The 764 cult actually was an online cult. It just that comment reminded me of it. I've done a deep dive about it. Oh, you have the nicest and soothing voice I've ever heard. Really? Wow, Jay Piper, thank you. I always think I sound cringy, so that means a lot to hear. All right. Let's bring some levity to the conversation, because I know when I bring up Donald Trump, people get angry, which is just, I we just need to take a moment because I'm like, I don't want to alienate anyone, but I could go on some rants. Anyways, we're going to talk about one taste, the orgasm cult. It was right at the intersection of wellness, spirituality, intimacy, and personal growth that all blended into a thriving commercial ecosystem. It was founded 21 years ago by Nicole Deadone, and it was built around orgasmic meditation known as OM, which is also the Om sound, like Om, which is supposed to be like the universal sound of peace and meditation. So, participants described early experiences as being liberating, emotionally profound, and transformative. I mean, they were effectively transmitting their orgasms into positive energy and becoming enlightened through pleasure. I mean, who wouldn't want it, you know? But then the internal dynamics began to shift, and former members reported pressure to engage in sexual acts as part of their growth work, to perform unpaid labor, and to commit fully to living communally, where leaders exerted complete influence over their own choices, their finances, and their relationships. So in 2018, there was an investigative report by Bloomberg Business Week that exposed troubling patterns, and this led to an FBI probe. In 2023, Deadone and former COO Rachel Cherwitz were indicted for forced labor conspiracy. And throughout 2025, pretrial motions continued as more former members began to come forward and expanded the picture of coercion. And I believe so. Well, first of all, I did a deep dive on this, and someone from the leader's inner circle actually emailed me, and they wanted to talk to me about how wrong I was in my deep dive and how much Nicole had helped people. They were still completely in denial. I mean, and this woman was convicted of all of the things she was accused of, I believe, or most of the things she was accused of. I think it was back in May. So this cult was effectively taken down. But it just goes to show how indoctrinated and how ingrained some of these beliefs can be. It breaks my heart, and I see this all the time with MAGA too, where someone is presented with true facts. People are speaking out against the injustices they experience at the hands of a cult leader, and they still just can't get out of the mental grips of it. They can't get out of the mental grips of it. It's just extremely, extremely heartbreaking and sad. So, my girl, Allison, what's her name? She might want to keep... Well, actually, I think she should keep watching. I think anyone who supports a cult leader needs to hear the opposite messaging from a grounded source who's done a ton of research. And look, calling somebody out and saying, hey, you're in a cult, get out, is not going to ever get anybody out of a cult. So I have a ton of, understanding of that and empathy for that, because it is a total change in your own identity, which can be really difficult for some people to reconcile with. So I'm just going to share this information and some of my opinions, but I do not want to spark outrage in the comments. I'm going to just say, like, if you are going to personally attack anyone, you'll be banned from the channel. Something I've seen over the last year are every single classic cult or abuser tactic being utilized, not just by Trump, but by all of his flying monkeys, aka the inner circle. What we constantly see, and most notably, is we might see a press conference happening, whether it's with Trump or one of his representatives, and somebody will ask a very grounded question, and one of two things will happen. Either there will be an ad hominem response, like a personal attack on that person's appearance, like Trump calling someone a pig, or trying to discredit the person asking the question. Oh, if they're a representative from CNN, well, that's just fake news, right? But we also see the other tactic being pure deflection and attack. That's it. These are two of the most commonly used tactics that cult leaders and abusers use because they want to make people think that A, somebody else is the enemy. How dare you ask that question? You're just trying to stir the pot, when really that's just someone avoiding the question so they don't have to provide an actual honest response. It's like they're trying to claim that someone's trying to give them a gotcha moment by doing a shitty gotcha moment, like, well, you're ugly, you're fat, blah, 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 blah. That's an ad hominem attack. The only people who use ad hominem attacks are people who have nothing of value to say. They don't have a real argument. So we've seen that a lot. We've also, instead of anyone taking accountability, we've seen just the blame game. These are like the classic tactics that these cult leaders use. So something I've been thinking about doing, but I'm like, I need to protect my peace, is go through some of these speeches and literally like break down when those moments are happening and explain the function of that reaction from a like manipulative perspective so that we start to see it faster. Because I know for me, since I like consume this type of stuff every single day and I'm constantly educating myself on it, I see the signs that much faster. And I think that people who continue to support these people, they're not seeing those signs because they're so used to being gaslit. They're just believing the narrative now. So if you're interested in me, like maybe every other week or something, like taking a speech, watching it with you, and we can look at it together and pinpoint, like, this is the tactic. He's reframing this so that he's creating an us versus them mentality. He's trying to turn his entire base against the Democrats or whomever, where it's like, okay, I think we all agree at this point, all politicians are corrupt in some way, one way or another. So it's like that shouldn't even be working on anybody at this point. But when we play into this us versus them narrative, we only make it worse. So being like, well, so-and-so is just as bad as so-and-so. What is true? What is true? And the truth is there are injustices being done across the nation, and it's at the hands of the people who are currently in power. Because MAGA is not just a cult. It's literally a political coalition. It's a large, multifaceted, and complex one that is shaping national policy, elections, cultural identity, public discourse, and it's embarrassing for Americans from a global perspective. I can't tell you how many times I'm on Reddit looking for cult survivor stories and someone from another country is like, what the hell is going on in America? You guys are lost. I'm like, not all of us. Scholars who examine political psychology and group dynamics have noted parallels between certain features of the MAGA movement and the structural patterns found in high control groups. Not in doctrine, not in intention, but in those tactics. The construction of in-groups and out-groups, the delegitimization of information sources, the centrality of a single charismatic figure, the use of persecution narratives, and the creation of a communal identity that feels existentially threatened by outside forces. Now, I feel like that was a lot to say. I just want to check in. Someone says, Thomas Odo says, Aaron, I want to be in your cult. I know, I used to be like, should I do a brand thing that's like the anti-cult cult? And I was like, no, because I feel like when you call something a cult that's not a cult, it diminishes the true meaning of a cult a little bit. But yes, the Wild West, the truth is really scary, which is why some avoid it. I agree. Yes, I do think there is this movement towards extreme nationalism. I've done deep dives on nationalism too, and the connection to like the incel movement, but maybe I could do one on its own. But But let's jump back into Donald Trump. Hopefully, the last few tactics I've outlined have been sitting with you a little bit. Now, I think we've all seen that Donald Trump's political success has always hinged on his ability to speak directly to his supporters in a way that seems to bypass traditional institutional filters. His rhetorical style is really simple and repetitive, and he says these absolutes that create an environment in which nuance is totally stripped away in favor of Donald Trump's truth, Donald Trump's certainty. Supporters often describe his communication as saying what we're all thinking or finally telling the truth, and I'm always like, I've never thought that, and it's factually inaccurate, bro. So for his supporters, their identity becomes fused with loyalty to the movement, and any criticism of Trump becomes framed not simply as political disagreement, but as a threat to the MAGA community itself. So we have to recognize that the mechanisms that generate that loyalty, things like charisma, emotion, belonging, and grievances, operate similarly across many types of groups. Politics isn't immune to the structures of influence. If anything, it amplifies them. So it's a story that tries to make sense of suffering. It's a system that provides some kind of structure for MAGA supporters, and it's a community that promises belonging. And it also validates their racist ideology that they should, rightly so, and have been shamed for previously. And they're like, I can finally say what I'm thinking. And you're like, maybe just don't. But the thing is that the collapse or exposure of a high control group like this doesn't necessarily end its influence. Survivors have to rebuild identities formed under the weight of charismatic authority. And there are and have been many people that are turning away from the MAGA ideology, luckily. I think what's most frustrating about it now is you voted for this guy who's doing the things he said he was going to do. That's why you voted for him. But you didn't think it was going to affect you. Something that's affecting my family, I'm sure your family, is the change in structure of healthcare and payment. Ours tripled going into the new year. It's more than my rent. But minimum wage isn't going up. It's being more and more difficult to survive. It's unaffordable to have healthcare in the United States of America at this point. Conservative women who voted for Trump and Republican policies to not allow abortion in any case are complaining because they had something terrible happen to their child and they can't get it taken care of because of the policies that they voted for. Farmers are finding it impossible to keep up with the supply and demand because ICE is actively deporting the very workers that helped make that happen, and they don't want to pay citizens because they would have to pay them minimum wage. People who used to hire people from out of country, H-1B1 visas, I might be mixing up that acronym. They're getting fined now 6 figures, and they're not able to just financially and exploit the labor of people wanting to come to America to work for them. But they'll vote for somebody that wants to strip all illegals from all of their rights without recognizing that the path to becoming a citizen can take years and years because you have to prove your residency. You can't become a citizen of the United States of America without proving that you live there. So effectively, you would have to live there illegally in order to prove that you're a resident of the United States of America so that you can get citizenship. Oh, and then you also have to have a job so it shows that you're contributing to the community. Oh, well, nobody, MAGA people don't want to pay illegal immigrants. So it's like your hatred is making your life harder. You finally being able to vote against women, against immigrants, against people of color, against people who are gay or trans. Your desire to just push down the things that you don't like, it's started to affect you. And it just shocks me that So many of these MAGA conservatives align with Christian values, but they totally lack empathy. And people on the other side of the political spectrum are like, yeah, we told you this would happen, and you called us snowflakes. We told you this would happen, and you made fun of us. You said we were the cult, when all we want is people to be able to love whoever they want, have safe homes for their family, to live in the country. Like, if you have true American pride, then effectively you want people to come here because they also believe in the opportunity that is here. That was like the basis of building America from the beginning. So I am happy to say that I have seen a trend away from MAGA. What's a little concerning about this is younger people, specifically men, who are already susceptible to more conservative ideology, they're starting to like grow in number and move over back to that spectrum of things, which is concerning. That's where we have the manosphere. That's where we have these alpha men. That's where we have these traditional home values, which is fine if both parties are agreeing to what they want their home life to look like, right? But I do think overall, the MAGA movement is starting to die. Now, the question of future generations succumbing to it is questionable and dangerous. And I think it's tricky to oh, the eye roller. Thank you. Your channel's one of my favorites. Thank you. Yeah. Someone says, I have a relative living in DC and has said to me when I said I'd like to come to USA is to not come due to the political situation, that it's not safe. If you are not an official United States citizen, I would be very cautious before coming here, especially if you're not a white person. Like, it like makes me start to get emotional because the project I was working on, it was in the construction field. And so obviously there were a lot of day laborers. And one day OSHA came, like they do, to come check the construction site. Everyone fled the scene because they were so afraid it was ICE. That is not a world I want to live in. Somebody comes to be like, I want to make sure you're all being safe. And just because they're in a uniform, everybody flees. Because whether you're a citizen or not now, if you look a certain way or talk a certain way, you could be targeted. Like, what are we... Something's got to be so wrong if you cannot recognize and have empathy for people in that situation. Where is the empathy for these people? It just... If you're buying into this us versus them mentality, you just have to stop. Because I'll say 100 times over, these people are misguided. I don't think MAGA supporters are terrible people. I think they have terrible beliefs that they are justifying because they are so connected to that identity by this point that to strip away themselves from that would destroy their entire worldview. They would have to build their connection to their self all over again. And it would also mean that they're wrong. People don't want to be wrong. It's very difficult for human beings to admit when we are wrong. It's a beautiful skill if you can cultivate it. There are times where I like, especially with my husband, where I'm like, I'm not wrong. And then I have to like pause and be like, shit, I'm wrong. But you learn from it. You learn from it. And that's what's most important, I think. So I'm really happy to see that these groups, well, MAGA specifically, I do think it's on a downward trajectory. I'm worried about the next 3 years for sure, but I think we just have to keep speaking out. We have to recognize the cult tactics. And if you are a MAGA supporter here, honestly, ask yourself questions. And I don't mean for that to come from like a snarky place, but we have to start asking ourselves bigger questions. And if you feel a red flag, if there's a tiny piece of you that's like, something's off, or I don't like what he said, or why did he do this, or are all of these things that Democrats are accusing the president of, they're all lies, all of them, all these people are lying about this one man because there's a secret agenda? No. The agenda is from the MAGA base, the people who are currently in power because they want to stay in power. So I do believe it's the downward spiral. I think this was a great year when it came to cult justice. And I'm hoping that going into 2026, we'll see the full downfall of the Shekinah Church, the M7. We'll see the full downfall of Twin Flames Universe. I hope we continue to see MAGA supporters diminish and change their minds. And I hope that empathy gets spread across that base, because I think that that's the big thing that's missing. They only seem to like care that something happens when it happens to them. They'll vote for it, but when it affects them, they're like, this isn't what I want. It's literally what he said he would do, bro. So before I log off, if you guys have any suggestions for me, please drop them in the chat. If you have any questions, we can take the last few minutes to just kind of hang out, see how we're doing before my computer dies. But this was fun. This was really fun. Let me know if you want some more of these lives. Lizzie Loves Anime says, I feel like people have lost how to show empathy, let alone teach it. I'm a teacher, and I'm constantly working with kids on this, and I can tell it's not a high priority everywhere. Oh, that breaks my heart, and it must be so hard for you as a teacher. Like, I want to communicate this, but I feel like teachers right now, too, are in such a delicate position because you have to succumb to what the parents want, and there's so much of like the government getting involved in how teachers teach now, and like this idea that like, well, all these teachers are just conspiring to indoctrinate children, and it's like, no, they're literally just trying to teach your kid life skills, or educate them so that they can go to higher learning or get a job in the future. Like, that's all they're trying to do. So, I mean, I really feel for you, Lizzie. That cannot be an easy situation to be in. Any other questions? Well, guys, this was so fun. So next week, I'm going to start doing live reactions Thursday mornings. So the schedule's going to look like this. Tuesdays, I'm going to share cult stories, real survivor stories. Some of you have emailed me, and I've been really bad about getting back to you, and you want to share your story. So if you want me to interview you on the channel, I can. If you want to type up your story and share it with me anonymously just to help educate other people or just get it off your chest, you can write me that email to letfresherin@gmail.com. The second video of the week is going to be that Thursday live, and then I'm also going to have those Saturday cult deep dives. I really want to watch the Jodi Hildebrandt documentary today and try to get a deep dive into that on Saturday, because she kind of fell to the wayside after the Ruby Frankie stuff, because she was like the main conspirator with the Ruby Frankie situation. And I'm glad they're doing a documentary specifically on Jodi, because her background is like insane. And then I have a ton of true crime videos that I've done throughout the last 3 years on my channel that I'm going to start posting on my Spotify every Tuesday. And then the deep dives will be up on Spotify every Friday. So if you prefer to listen, and if you prefer to not have things like blanked out certain words, YouTube, I mean, my last video on Mel Robbins got demonetized. I don't know why. I can't find an email from YouTube telling me why. I can't like ask them to like change it or review it. I don't know. I didn't get like a copyright strike or anything. It just was like, yeah, now you're not making money on this video, which, is fine, but your girl lost her job. So And then I have those membership tiers that are officially live as of right now. I'll be adding perks to each of those groups as time goes on. So Twin Flames Universe is actually based in Michigan. I think I can't remember which one. I think Jeff is from Canada, but they actually live man, where do they live? Traverse City. They live in Traverse City, Michigan. So that's where their like base is. That's where they said they wanted to have a compound. I'm from Scotland, and the political situation can also get bad here, especially between being Scottish and British. Wow, I didn't know that. Interesting. That's so strange. Because I think as a U.S. person, we kind of think of UK being Scotland and England and, Ireland too. So we don't think there would be like a ton of discourse. But I guess if you think back to like medieval history, there is a ton of it. But yeah, anyways, guys, tons of fun things on the horizon for next year. Let me know what you'd like to see more of, less of, but be nice. I am a sensitive girly. And as always, thank you so much for your support. It's been really, really cool to see this community grow. I even hesitate to use the word community, but it is really cool that we're able to talk like this and get different perspectives, and I hope to do more of that next year. I'm really hoping for 100,000 subs by the end of 2026. That's my big lofty goal. My goal for this year was 50K. I got to 30K, so fingers crossed. I have the time to pour into I hate when people say that, pour into my passion, but I have the time to really commit to the channel now, since I am not working a full-time job, and I think I'm just going to do some part-time stuff on the side from here on out. But with all that being said, I really appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. Please stay safe out there tonight, and I really hope you have a great start to your new year. And don't feel pressured to change your entire life by tomorrow, right? You have the whole year. You have plenty of time, and just listen to yourself and your instincts and your intuition. And please have a great, safe, wonderful, abundant new year. I'll see you guys in my next video soon. Bye.